Frank Frazetta is a legend in the world of sci-fi and fantasy art. One of my all-time favorite illustrators. The hours I spent poring over his images I can't even count. From album covers to early comic book days with things like Buck Rogers and Conan the Barbarian, I mean, his work is all over the place. He's definitely an icon. So when my friend Andy pointed out to me that the Frazetta Museum was just a couple hours away from me in Pennsylvania, I decided it was definitely time to make a visit. So, as it was a gorgeous Saturday recently, dropped the top and hopped in the car and drove the 2 hours to Stroudsburg, PA. I was really looking forward to seeing all these paintings and sketches in person, the ones I've been looking at in magazines for my whole life, really. Just the ability to see like the individual brushstrokes and all that kind of stuff, just seeing what kind of things would be on display and how they looked in person, I was really anticipating the experience. It was a great drive going up there, mostly farm country and back roads. So I had a great time doing it, really. Even got a little bit of sunburn on my arms. But finally got up there. It's really tucked away in a corner. You'd never see it if you didn't have directions. So pulling into the museum, it's on a 67-acre estate. Now the cool thing about this is that Frank Frazetta Jr. and his wife Lori still own and live on this estate and run the museum. So pulling in, as expected, there's a giant lizard crawling out of the marsh towards me. Wouldn't expect anything less. And here's the building up here on the right. Kind of a cool quasi-medieval affair. Definitely a neat building and a gorgeous setting. Really cool land out here. So, let's take a look inside and see what we see. Now, as you can tell, it's not an enormous room, but there's a ton of art, and it's just stacked from floor to ceiling. A lot to look at here. I'd not seen all of this. Most of these I've seen before, like this one. So it was really cool to see these in person, but it was also cool to see ones that I didn't know before. Some of the cool things that struck me, like this one of Conan the Barbarian, when you really get up close, like look at his hair, where it ends. It's really almost not even finished. It's almost like a suggestion of hair. It's almost like he's worried more about the motion he captured than the technique and the detail. This one of the woolly mammoth charging through the trees towards the hunter. If I had to put money on it, this guy's gonna lose. Some more of his illustrations here. An unused movie poster. Here's Judge Dredd with Alfred E. Newman, used for a Mad magazine cover. He did some movie posters as well. Clint Eastwood, The Gauntlet, with Sandra Locke. Now there's Clint Eastwood here on the property with Frank. Apparently had a lot of visitors here. People really admired him. There's George Lucas. Some other advertisements he did. That's Carlsberg beer. I always loved this sketch. That was really cool that they had an actual enlarged cutout of it. Here's Frank Frazetta Jr. explaining how to take the transmission out of a '73 Chevy Nova, or discussing the artwork. Probably the artwork, actually. These are some of the prints that are on sale. So some of them they have for sale are not on display in the museum, but that's cool. So if there's something you like that you didn't see in person, you can still buy a good print of it. They have a lot of stuff in the gift shop. Here's some other paintings on display in the center of the room. Of course, here you have the famous Molly Hatchet flirting with disaster. You can really see the brushstrokes up front. Really thin paint, actually, too. He did not put varnish on these paintings. And I always love this alien cat. Just so sinister looking. Here's the Fire and Ice artwork, the Ralph Bakshi movie, with some character studies. This was rotoscoped, so apparently Frank was a double in it, or a stuntman. It's a cool sketch here. Frank Frazetta Jr. and I actually had a pretty decent conversation, so it was fun talking to him. Here's the iconic Death Dealer paintings. And his wife Lori pointed out to me a cool aspect of this famous painting. There are actually no reins on the polar bear, and he felt that would distract from the painting and make the polar bear seem tame, but you don't even notice it. And I was also told that he regarded this painting as his masterpiece, and it's just fantastic. Look at that cat, and look how thin the paint is. You can see the canvas right through it. The way the light plays on the subject is just unbelievable. And look at the cat here. There's actually no detail at all. Your mind just basically fills it in, which is a really superb technique. The lack of detail makes you imagine it even more. Now, Frank had 2 strokes later in life and lost the use of his right arm, so he had to relearn using his left hand. Now, that painting and this one right here were both done left-handed, which is actually pretty extraordinary. And I would have never known that if they hadn't told me. This was done on masonite instead of canvas. And this one with the shark was always one of my favorites. Headless Horseman. A lot of neat stuff here. This one right here, the Night Stalker, is always one of my favorites. You don't even see the subject matter's face. It's like inferred action to come. Here's some paintings he did of his family. Frank there. Rest of the family, his wife. Now, this was done when he was 3 years old, and all these paintings on this wall are when he was young. This one, I believe he was 9 years old, which is pretty amazing. And this one, I believe he was 12. Now look at the muscle detail in the cat. Just astounding to think that a young kid could do that. The eye for detail is incredible. His name originally had 2 Z's in it. He changed it to 1. Now here's some personal effects, some cameras he collected. Some revolvers, a bolt-action rifle, some knives, various photographs of himself. So they got some personal artifacts here too. And just outside the museum, here's the personal home he lived in, him and his wife. So that is still on the property right next to the museum. All in all, it was a great visit. Driving back home, I was still daydreaming about all the images I grew up with, still kind of playing over in my head. Just really neat to see all that stuff in person. And seeing the originals up close, where you can really get up to them and see the individual brushstrokes and that kind of thing, is really a different experience than just seeing them in print. So it's definitely a worthwhile visit if you're a fan of his artwork or sci-fi, horror, fantasy art in general. This is worth a visit. So Stroudsburg, PA, if you're ever in the area, I definitely recommend it.